It's so much fun, but it's so frustrating at the same time. And where the addiction comes in for me is I love to entertain. I want to entertain people with my adventures. I want to go on super cool adventures. Not everyone can go on these adventures. I want them to be able to watch it, get entertained, want them to feel like they're there, go through the emotions that I'm going through. So to entertain people, show them some of the adventures that I get to go on. And then the last thing, man, is kind of like legacy / immortality. Things are different nowadays, man, where you put up a video on the internet, that's there forever. But when I look back, even when I was a kid, obviously there was no internet when I was a kid. That's dating me, right? We didn't even have internet till I was like freshman in high school. But if I wanted to know who my grandpa's grandpa was, my great-great-grandpa, I would be lucky to have a picture of who he is. And really, there are probably no stories. I would not know who that person really was.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the RedBeard Outdoors podcast. I'm Jonathan, your host, and here at RedBeard Outdoors, I talk about faith, family, fitness, and the outdoors. On Saturdays like today, I bring a guest on, more of an hour to an hour and a half conversation usually. And today we have Kurt Belding from Western Obsessions TV. He absolutely loves getting after it, getting out in the woods, chasing elk, chasing mule deer, chasing pronghorn, whitetails, whatever it may be out in the woods during this time of year here in the fall. So you definitely want to stay tuned for this conversation, get to know more about Kurt. He's just an awesome, awesome dude. But before we get into that, I want to remind you guys that first, I want to say thank you for all the support up to this point. If you like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're almost at 3,000 subscribers. Maybe by the time this video comes out, we will be there. So I appreciate your support in such a short amount of time. Also over on the podcast, if you're listening to this on the Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or now Carbon TV, make sure you follow, leave a review. It helps way more than you know. Those are all free ways to support us here at RedBeard Outdoors. If you're in the market for any kind of gear, make sure you check out the links down below where you can find links for Montana Knife Company, for Phorm Outdoors. Come join us over at the Phorm Outdoors Facebook group. All of those things are gear items that I use personally, that I trust and that I believe in, and I want to get you the best price possible. And in turn, you're supporting me, you're supporting the channel, and you're supporting those that are partners with me, people that I trust, companies that I appreciate. So all of that to be said, thank you so much, guys. That's kind of how we work things here. I don't like to spam you with a bunch of ads, but I do want you to know that I'm trying to get you the best pricing possible, and how you can support me here at the channel, me and my family. So thank you so much. With that being said, guys, let's get into this conversation with Kurt, where we talk about hunting, our passions for it, fitness, how all of those things play in together with faith, family, fitness, and getting outdoors, especially around this time of year that we love so much here in the fall. Let's get into this conversation with Kurt Belding and Western Obsessions TV. We have Kurt Belding of the Western Obsessions TV show. If you haven't heard of him, we're going to get into what he does, why he started the channel that he's got, and things like that.
Hey, Jonathan, how's it going, man?
Can you hear me?
Sorry, cutting out a little bit, freezing a little bit. Maybe it's mine, maybe it's yours. I don't know.
Well, it'll come back together in the end. We'll get that worked out there in post. But Kurt is just an awesome dude that loves the outdoors. Obviously, he's got some amazing deer behind him there on the wall. For those of you that are watching on the YouTube channel, if not, definitely recommend you go and check that out. But with that being said, guys, Kurt had me on his podcast. I really appreciated being on there and having that conversation. And I wanted to bring him on here so you guys could get introduced to who Kurt is. So for people that don't know you, Kurt, who are you, man?
Yeah. Hey, man, I'm just another random dude that's obsessed with hunting. I mean, that's the most basic part of it, right? So, but a little more detail. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and that just means I struggle with a whole bunch of businesses throughout my life. And, when I hit 40, I am 44 now. When I hit 40, I kind of had a midlife crisis, and I've always hunted. It was from a little boy, but I decided, man, I just want to go on as many really cool, badass hunting adventures as I can. So I closed down or sold all my businesses that I had and just started going on hunting adventures.
Mm.
And so that was, 4 years ago. So I've been living a pretty good life for 4 years, man.
Heck yeah. Well, that's awesome to hear. That's super exciting, man. It's cool to get into your passions and to just get all in. Obviously it's in the name of your channel, Western Obsessions, and we'll talk a little bit about that because so many people. It's cool. I've heard so many different ideas of what maybe even a dream hunt is, or what people's favorite animal is to go after, or what state, etc. And definitely want to touch on that with you. But for with that being said, what up to this point, what has been your, I guess, what made you go down the path of Western obsessions? What is
Yeah.
what made you go down that path?
As far as like the hunting show itself, is that what you're kind of saying? Yeah. Yeah, a few things, man. Like I enjoyed watching hunting episodes, and when I started it, like a lot has changed in the last 4 or 5 years. But when I started the show, I started filming my hunts. So I'm not even going to call it a show at that point. I'm going to call it like me attempting to film my hunts. There wasn't a lot actually going on as far as filming. There was still some old school type of stuff, like on the Sportsman's Channel, Outdoor Channel, and it was probably 15 minutes of commercials with 6-7 minutes of actual hunt footage. And I just didn't really enjoy that. There was some YouTube guys popping off, some YouTube, and I was like, man, I could do that. I think I could do that. And I have a little bit of background of, content creation. I'm like, I think I could do that and make it look pretty cool and good. So I just wanted to try, and I tried and actually got super addicted to filming my hunts. It's so much fun, but it's so frustrating at the same time. And where the addiction comes in for me is I love to entertain. I want to entertain people with my adventures. I want to go on super cool adventures. Not everyone can go on these adventures. I want them to be able to watch it, get entertained, want them to feel like they're there, go through the emotions that I'm going through. So to entertain people, show them some of the adventures that I get to go on. And then the last thing, man, is kind of like legacy / immortality. It's things are different nowadays, man, where you put up a video on the internet, that's there forever. I believe it would be there forever unless something happens to the internet. But when I look back, even when I was a kid, obviously there was no internet when I was a kid. That's dating me, right? We didn't even have internet till I was like freshman in high school. But if I wanted to know who my grandpa's grandpa was, my great grandpa, I would be lucky to have a picture of who he is. And really, there are probably no stories. I would not know who that person really was at all, right? But now, with filming my hunts and doing some content creation around me and my life, my grandkids will be able to see who their idiot great grandpa Kurt was, running around the world chasing stuff and spending all his money.
Exactly. It's a good point of putting it. And honestly, that's a big thing. It is like a virtual journal in a way. And
Yeah.
Even if the internet for some reason goes away, having these on a hard drive or saved so that people can go and your kids, your grandkids, your great grandkids can go back and check it out. Who knows what YouTube's going to be like in 50 years from now. But I wish, and I've even contemplated going and recording with my grandpa, because he's been through Korea, Vietnam, and so many things since then.
Oh, for sure.
He's been through and experienced a lot of things that he probably doesn't even honestly want to talk about, but the experiences themselves, not necessarily getting into the nitty gritty of it, but just what he went through, what he experienced would be interesting for me to hear. My grandpa going through and hearing his hunting stories, his fishing stories and things like that. Those are all things that I wish I could just watch on repeat, sometimes. And so
Heck yeah.
it'll be cool to see what our grandkids do with these podcasts and what they get to hear about from us. So, you went full bore into not just like me, where I'm like, I just want to have good conversations, but you actually went into recording hunts and things along those lines. Talk to us a little bit about that. Why like obviously you mentioned having the virtual journal, but at the same time, like it takes a lot to film a hunt and then to go back and edit it in post. Is not just you have a constant running video. I mean, you cut it all down to 30, 45 minutes or maybe an hour even. How do you, why did you choose to go down that route specifically other than just recapping your hunts on a podcast or something like that?
I love movies, man. I've always loved sitting down and watching a movie. I've always kind of said that's my drug. That gets to take me out of my reality and place me in a different reality. So just really enjoying that. And I enjoy how movies are put together. Like you can break down the parts, right? Like first few minutes of the movie is developing the characters, and then there's a goal in mind. And then there's problems that come up that prevent the characters from reaching the goals. And you can kind of see a storyline typically lay out in a movie, but I just really enjoy it. So that's kind of why I went towards filming because I enjoy movies a lot. And if I wanted to relive my hunt, your memory is only so good. And a lot of times your memory isn't correct. Like what you think you remember, it didn't really happen that way. Yeah. And by filming it and sometimes just having that raw footage of shaky camera and crappy footage, you literally can relive that, what really happened. So that's kind of why I went down that route. Now there's definitely been many moments where I'm like, why the hell am I doing this? Especially blowing stocks or like any animal, like what I should have killed easily without a camera in hand, especially when I'm self-filming. That gets blown up and I don't kill that animal because I'm trying to self-film. Like, especially in those moments, I'm like super frustrated. Why am I doing this? But yeah, man, that's kind of the kind of reason why I went down. And I honestly, I really don't see myself not doing it anymore. I think I'll probably do it forever. And it's not even about whether or not I can get people to watch it. That's kind of like a second notion of like, man, if I can entertain other people, that would be great. But if no one watches my episodes, I really don't care. I really enjoy doing it. I enjoy creating the movie and watching it myself and then showing my little 2-year-old boy, like, look, there's daddy on TV and he loves it. He wants to watch and, watch my adventure. Yeah. And, the grandkids thing. But yeah, that's why I did that, man. And I suck at it still. I've been doing it for 4 years and I'm terrible at it. Like I'm still learning a crap ton about it, and by making by filming and editing my own episodes, you learn a lot about how to film, how to edit, and how to try to entertain somebody.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that. It's something that blows my mind, and self-filming and doing things like that, just it's a whole nother level of dedication and how many, even blown stalks, like people don't think about that when they're watching the video on the channel. They're not thinking about the fact that even if you do have another cameraman, it's still two people rather than one that's trying to get in on the stalk. And then on top of that, getting the right, like when everything comes together and you have the shot whether it's a rifle or a bow or anything along those lines, it's hard to even imagine being able to just get in on those stalks and being there in person, but also having that camera over your shoulder. And then people don't understand that, yes, there's autofocus and stuff, but the good shots are not necessarily autofocused. And even if it is autofocus, like you have to watch out for the back of someone's head or the movement of the bow or the rifle. Like there's so many, you can't just click a button and make it focus on what you want, right? So
yeah,
when you have all those good shots, it takes a lot of skill in the moment, and usually it's a really quick, like people black out on just full draw on an animal, let alone making sure the camera's focused right. So I like to think about all those details when I'm watching something that is filmed so well. It just blows my mind because I know all the scramble and all the crap that goes behind getting that good shot,
yeah,
all of that to me it just blows my mind. So I think it's cool that you're using your passion for movies and things like that to put that into reality. So If I understand, I haven't watched everything, but do you self-film all of your videos?
Most of them I do, mainly because I really enjoy being in the woods alone. And that's where I can escape. And I just find, and also like just the magic happens a little bit more. I feel like when I'm immersed into the wilderness or wherever I'm hunting alone, and I'm not, and just being straight up. Sometimes when someone else is holding a camera, pointing it at me, I get a little not quite like myself. Right? It's kind of hard to talk to a camera sometimes. And sometimes when I'm alone by myself and I just turn the camera around on me, now I'm just talking, like my inner thoughts come out, my inner dialogue come out of like what's going on. So I enjoy that. And, talking about, you're right. Like when you have a camera guy with you, that's double the scent, double the sound, double the movement. Everything's doubled. It's twice as hard when you have two people versus one. But the guys that do self film and solo hunt, like Remy Warren has done a lot of it. I respect that so much, man. When you can put together a good episode self filming and the footage is not going to be as good as a professional camera guy on your hip that knows everything exactly how to run a camera. Most self filmers are hunters that bring along a cell phone or a GoPro or something to like try, and the footage is always bad. But man, I really appreciate those guys that do it because I know how hard it is to do it. And not take anything away from like the guys that have a professional cameraman with them, because the footage always looks nicer and cleaner and crisper, and it's a little easier to get that job done. And it's enjoyable for the average consumer to watch it because it just feels better subconsciously to watch footage like that. But I definitely have a lot of respect for the self-filming guys.
Exactly. Yeah, it's definitely something that, um, like I said, I can't imagine because it's hard enough. It really is hard enough to stalk in on an animal, especially people like you brought up Remy Warren that does a lot of bow hunting. And then
Mm-hmm.
on top of that, he even did a season where he was drawing with his mouth. He had a mouth
Yeah,
tab.
mouth
And I'm
tab.
like, oh my gosh. Like,
Yeah.
not only are you shooting with a mouth tab, which I've never done and just blows my mind, but too, you're setting up a camera and filming yourself doing it. Yeah, it just, again, I like to highlight things like that because people log into YouTube. It's super simple to just click and watch a video. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously people recognize the people that have really good production, but they don't often think of the people that are self-filming, that how many times they've blown a stalk because they were trying to set up a camera.
Oh man.
It just
Yeah.
blows my mind.
Tons. And there's so many problems that happens with I mean, there's a lot of problems that happen with just hunting alone. Like I really believe that when you kill an animal, like there's always a little bit of variable luck, always. That everything has to come together perfectly for that to happen. There's so many problems that could come up, whether it be mechanical problems, the wind switches, you step on a stick, whatever it is. But like now you're putting in a lot of variables of camera stuff. So I've had so many times like the battery just died on my camera as I'm turning it on to get the kill shot, or I have a little red light blinking on my GoPro and the animal picks up the red light and boom, they're gone. They're just so, I've had so many instances like that where I'm like, God, if I just didn't have cameras with me, I would have killed that animal. And as usually they're nice, mature animals that I would have loved to have had, right? So, but the hardest hunt to film, man, is the archery spot and stock. Either spot and stock anything, or my opinion, the archery elk hunt is the hardest hunt to film because there's just so much going on. A lot of times they're in thick cover coming in. To self film that is almost impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I had a buddy that I think it was last year or the year before. Washington's already hard enough as it is to hunt, and I want to say it was a late season rifle or something like that, and so he basically went into hunt not really expecting to actually tag out, but he just loves the hunt itself, and so he ended up finding a bull that was actually a good branch antlered bull and set up the camera, and you see something moved in front of the camera, and that focus, because he had set up the focus on the bull,
Mm.
you see the bull, and then something moved in front of the camera, and obviously he's more focused on getting the shot rather than getting the camera set up. And you can still see the fuzzy brown in the background, and then you hear the shot, and then you hear him come back to the camera. He's like, "Oh crap," because it went out of focus, and all you see is in clear
Yeah.
focus the evergreen that's right there, and then in the background you see that the brown fuzzy that's back there,
Hmm.
and so it just yeah it when everything goes right. They say that it's 10% of bow hunters actually kill an elk every year.
Hmm.
I'd say probably 10% of that. I'm just throwing numbers
Yeah.
out there, but that are able to actually self film that kind of deal. So again, just kind of going down that rabbit hole. But I just want to highlight people that go on YouTube, and it's so easy to just log into YouTube and all the hunting films that are coming out right now, building up to hunting season. Recognize the work and the time that goes into that, and how all you have to do to help support is drop a comment, leave a like,
Yeah.
even subscribe to the channel if it's something that you like. But even those other two things help way more than people understand. And it's simple, and all the time and hours and sweat and blood equity that you've put into that 30 to 45 minutes, that took weeks to film and edit.
Oh man,
All it takes is a little thumbs up and a comment, and it helps
so much time.
so yeah, so
Yeah.
I just want to highlight that for people like yourself and that are out there. If you find someone that you really enjoy their films, make sure you're supporting, even if it isn't monetarily, just in that free, simple way, when you're watching the stuff, because it really does help more than people understand. So
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I appreciate you said that. And I appreciate every person that gives me a like, a view even. You watch for 5 seconds, you get bored and you bounce out. Man, I appreciate you even like clicking in a watch, right? Giving me an opportunity and a chance to try to entertain you. And I think there's a lot more to think about too than capturing the kill shot, is to really entertain someone, all the B-roll that you need to get, all the like drone shots and yeah, the walking, they call it the solo hunter's extra mile when you're self filming, where you like put the camera up and then walk by the camera, you know? And in my first time I tried filming, it was an archery antelope spot and stock hunt. And I killed an antelope, and I brought my footage to like my videographers that I had at the time. And I'm like, hey guys, could you edit this? And they're like, Kurt, what the hell you want me to do with this? There's no B-roll. You've got you stalking this animal, somewhat capturing, shooting the animal, and that's all you have. I'm like, they're like, that's not going to be an episode, man. Nothing I can do
what
with
else
that.
do you want? Isn't that what people want to see?
Yeah, but 70% of an episode is B-roll. So how much B-roll you got to take in the narrative and the storylines, and there's just a lot that goes in it, man. I know we're beating a dead horse on filming, but next time you guys watch something on YouTube, just keep that in mind of how much time and energy and work went into that. And then if the person has a production crew, how much money that takes too. It can get real expensive.
Yeah, and just to give a shout out, I try and anytime this kind of stuff comes up, I love Pedro Ampuero. For people that don't know
Yeah.
his stuff, man, he lives it, and he absolutely loves it. And he's got a film crew. Some of his stuff is self film, but most of it is with a film crew. But man, it's a different, and you can't even compare the two. For me, it's like comparing the Rockies and the Appalachian Mountains. Like, they're two separate entities. Self filming and production crew quality are just they're different. You can't really compare them
Yep.
because there's takes two different levels of skill, two different levels of money that's going into it, time, and all of those things. So, but both of them have an amazing value that they produce, and the story that you guys tell. I love it. It's some of my favorite stuff, and sometimes I don't even watch until like I know it's coming up to the good part or whatever is happening with the stalk or whatever. I'll just turn on YouTube and listen to it, and just I can picture the experience, even though obviously there's a video, but I'll listen to people walking you through the stalk or a blown stalk or whatever it is the experience is, and then maybe tune in when it's the shot or whatever. But um, you know, putting myself in those situations and learning from other people's experiences is a lot of fun. And I recommend that for people too. It's almost like, I wouldn't say it's the same as dry firing your pistol or your rifle or anything like that. It's not quite the same, but it is a lot of the mental reps that you can go through by learning from other people's experiences that put it up on YouTube. People that you can trust anyway, that are telling a good story. Learning what went wrong or what went right, and then applying that to your time that you have when you're up on the mountain as well.
Yeah. No, that's great, man. It can be a great learning tool. And kind of to your hint, there's a lot of BS out there too. There's a lot of garbage of like Hollywood stuff where like that's not what happened. They didn't even shoot that animal, but like Hollywooded it all up to make it seem like that's what happened. And there's a lot of BS out there too, man.
Oh, that definitely is. And that's the unfortunate thing too, but you can get a sense of, or maybe I just have a good BS meter, but it's you can get a good sense of what's good and what's not out there. And also good depends on what you're wanting out of it. Like I don't necessarily watch a lot of whitetail stuff because I'm not a big whitetail guy. Whereas if I was back east, maybe that would be a thing. There's very few whitetail hunters that I watch or listen to their stuff. And so for me, that's not something that I necessarily really enjoy. Whereas vice versa, some people may not necessarily enjoy a good elk hunt or even understand the difference between private and public land, because there's different types of private land as well. And so what is good is very dependent on what you're wanting to get out of it. Again, there's oil moguls that will fly into New Mexico, and basically the person has done all the hunting for them, and they just have to go out and they have to maybe hike for a couple miles to the spot that they know the elk are at. They've already been spotted for them, and they go and they shoot that elk. That's awesome for that person because they only have 2 to 3 days out of an entire year to be able to go hunt. Whereas for me, I'm like, one, I can't afford that $20,000 hunt, but two, I want to go and spend time in the mountains. That's something I enjoy doing. And so again, just going back to good is relative to you and to what you're looking for. So there's a lot of it out there. You just got to find what most intrigues you, really.
Yeah. Whatever scratches your itch, for sure.
Yeah. Whatever gets you excited.
Sure.
But no, with that being said, man, let's go into maybe tell us let's start off with your worst hunt that you've been on. Let's start off with the bad first, and then we'll get into the good. What's a story that maybe you've told on your channel or you haven't told and you want to tell about just, your worst experience? Maybe you screwed up royally, or another hunter came in and messed up the hunt, or the camera blew your stock, whatever. But what's your most stinging memory when it comes to hunting?
It's good. Most stinging memory. That helps me define it because there's a lot of bad. And let me first preface to say that I would rather be, my favorite spot to be is in the mountains, chasing deer, elk, or whatever. And I would rather be super remote, not see another hunter, but not see any game. I would rather that happen than be in an area where I know there's game, but there's hunters everywhere. When I go hunting, man, I just want to be alone. I want to get away from people. I don't want competition. In sports, I love competition. I played a lot of sports as a kid, and even in college, I played college baseball. Love competition. I thrive on it. But as a hunter, I don't want competition. I'm there to unite with nature, not to compete with other dudes. So that would be, anytime I'm doing that, I'm not enjoying myself. But my most stinging moment, I'm gonna give you my most stinging moment, and I'm gonna give you probably my most physical, hardest hunt that I've been on. My most stinging moment is last year. I had an archery elk tag here in Colorado. It was a draw tag. I actually ended up buying it from a landowner. I knew the area really well. I knew it was going to be a good hunt. I'm self-filming it. And I got on a monster bull.
Brief interruption, guys. Hope you're enjoying this conversation, but I want to remind you that if you want any of these right here, amazing energy drinks, from First Phorm. Maybe you're not into energy drinks, but you need some good post-workout recovery. Maybe you need a multivitamin. Maybe you need some omegas, some greens, all of the above. Check out the link down below. Get free shipping for life on orders over $75. You never have to put in a code. It's linked to your profile, and then you will be supporting me and my family as well, using the supplements that I use as well, along with the education that comes from First Phorm. I absolutely love it. If you're not in the market for supplements, but you want to join the First Phorm Outdoors community, you don't have to be using First Phorm to get in. We want you in the community. Go check out Facebook. The link is also down below. Let them know RedBeard sent you over at First Phorm Outdoors Facebook group. Look forward to seeing you over there, guys. Have a successful fall, whatever your tags are: whitetail, bear, elk, mule deer, pronghorn, whatever it is that you're going after. Maybe you're even going out and fishing. Maybe you're just enjoying the fall colors while you're hiking, camping, enjoying the cooler weather. Whatever it is, come and share it with us over at First Phorm Outdoors Facebook group. Let them know RedBeard sent you. And now let's get back to this conversation here with Kurt Belding.
We're like big herd of elk. There was a couple bulls in there. I don't want to say what I think he might have scored, but I will just say this. There was a bull in there was about 300 inches, and he made him look small. He made him look like a little peon. And so here, basically, let me entertain your listeners a little bit. So I'm up in this area, and I'm like super, what's the word am I looking for? Roughing it. I don't even have a tent. I am sleeping with a sleeping bag and a bivvy, and wherever I end up for the evening is where I'm just throwing my sleeping bag down and I'm sleeping, right? So I find elk, and it goes dark, run out of time. Next morning, I wake up early, and they're kind of in some open, like above tree line area. There's some like bushes and stuff, but like way above tree line. So I sneak in the dark, where like if it was daytime, they would have saw me. But my plan was to get in the dark as close to them as I could get to. And the wind, right away in the morning, man, you always have good wind coming down the mountain. Your thermals are always true, and you can trust them. So I knew I could trust them. I got within probably 150 yards, and I thought I knew exactly where they were going to go. And then daybreak happens. And about 30 minutes after daybreak, they did not go where I thought they were going to go. So I had to make a quick move. They started basically going down the mountain into the trees. I thought they were going to come across towards me, and made a quick move, took off running, being as stealthy as I could, and cut them off as they're coming down. And cow, elk after cow, there's a herd of probably 50 to probably 75 elk in there. Cow elk after cow elk's funneling through, and I can't get any closer. I'm at 90 yards of where each, like individually funneling down this spot, right? And I'm a bit embarrassed about saying 90 yards, because I know there's people out there going to be talking a lot of crap to me. And bear with me on this story. This is definitely a learning lesson story. I practice all the time out past 100 yards, all the time. And I'm very confident at 90 yards. I can group really well. So that 90-yard shot, I'm very confident in. I'm about 80%. So when I say 80%, 8 out of 10 arrows that I would shoot at 90 yards are kill shots, so right where I want them. So I'm very confident at it. But I've not flung an arrow at an elk that far to date, right? But I know, man, like there's no way I can get any closer to this group. I'm as close as I can get. He finally comes out. Well, first the 300-inch bull comes out, and I thought it was him. And I'm like, oh, there he is. And then I saw him behind the bull. I'm like, nope. That bull just made that 300-inch bull look small. So he steps out to where all the elk stepping. I go to draw, and there's so much noise. There's so many cows that are mewing. And so in my mind, I'm like, man, I can't mew to get him to stop, because there's so much mewing, and I'll just wait for him to naturally stop. And that's when I'll release. So I'm in full draw. He's coming down. He naturally stops. And then I center the pin and I let it rip. As soon as I let it rip, he takes another step forward. And here's where I've learned, I may be confident out to 90 yards, and I may be able to shoot really well to 90 yards. But what I can't control is what happens when that arrow is in flight.
Mm-hmm.
I hit him in the flank.
Mm-hmm.
He stepped forward. I hit him in the flank, and I had footage of it. So I replay the footage, and the arrow went exactly where I was aiming. It went the shot was perfect. But what I couldn't control is he stopped, and then right when I let go, he took another step and started moving again. And I wounded the biggest bull I've ever been on in my life. And I looked for him, looked for blood, looked for him for 2 days after that. And I couldn't find him. I don't know, that's right in the flank. So you're looking at some guts. You're looking at some nasty shit. He's not going to die right away, but he's probably going to die. And it was the biggest gut punch. I was just so sick to my stomach just knowing that I wounded that animal. I wish I would have missed. I wish I wouldn't have taken the shot. In hindsight, I've learned a lot from that mistake. And I literally, after those 2 days, I left. I was done. That was the end of my hunt. That's the shot I took. I was so disgusted. I called a good buddy of mine. I was like, I'm done bow hunting. I'm done. If I had a rifle, if I had a muzzleloader, that bull would have been dead, not wounded. And he had been dead. I'd been packed him out. I'd been feeding on the meat. I definitely would have done something as a mount or whatever. But, that stung a lot, dude. And it still stings right now talking about it. But I did not quit bow hunting. I learned from my mistake. And even though that I can put 8 out of 10 arrows perfectly at 90 yards, that arrow's in the air for a long time, man. And I can't control what happens when that arrow's in the air. So that's the most stinging hunt that I've been on.
No, I got you, man. That's rough. Because what people don't understand, so, or maybe they do. Let me just reiterate. Elk are big animals, and so one step from an elk is multiple feet. And so for him to be able to move that much, I mean, that is. That just one step can really move from a double lung shot to a rear or hind quarter shot, which is that's hard. It doesn't matter what kind of arrows you're shooting, and the only thing that would have made that any better is be able to get close. But there are people that shoot animals further than that and are successful, but again, the animal doesn't move, and so there's nothing wrong with if you're confident out to that yardage, taking that shot. And I appreciate that you're honest with that, because some people, either for the desire to not want to look bad online or whatever. And again, this is funny to me because I'd still consider myself relatively new to archery, even though it's been a little over 5 years or so that I've been into it. I'd still say I'm really new. And it still blows my mind when people get so upset and feel like they need to share their opinion on someone that they don't know anything about, and that they don't know how often that person shoots. They project their own, like maybe a whitetail person goes online and says, why would you shoot an animal at 90 yards? Because for them, a far shot is 30, because if you shoot much more than that, you're not going to be able to see the animal, or there's brush in the way or whatever. Mm-hmm. And for people to judge that, I genuinely don't know where that comes from and why people feel like they need to be able to do that, unless like I know you really well and I'm like, dude, you don't shoot past 70. Why'd you take that shot?
Right. Like, dude, your groups are terrible after 70. Why would you do that? Right.
Yeah. Exactly. So, for you to say that again, I appreciate that you shared that. And it's something that I always encourage people to do, because when you get into that mode and you're in there in the middle of a rut fest, you've got this big old massive bull that you haven't seen anything bigger in your entire life. You've got a lot of stuff going on in your mind, the chemical dump that your brain does that makes you black out and want to take that bull down, and you either maybe you go one way and you're like super confident, you're like, I know for a fact I'm gonna hit, like, and you've never shot that far, whatever it is. I always tell people, before you go out on a hunt, set a boundary that that you're confident at. Obviously, you said you had shot past 100, so you knew that. But even then, animals can move, And so that's just something that you can't, like you said, you can't factor in because you didn't know if he was going to move or not. You thought he had stopped. And he got a little excited and took a step. So, man, that I can't imagine how that feels. You know,
It hurts, man.
The one animal that I didn't recover at the time of the shot, I did end up going back. I think it was 2 weeks later and finding him. And so I had some closure to that. But I know how I felt during those 2 weeks of, you know, I'm going to notch my tag because I know that animal's dead. And I didn't get to recover the meat. I didn't get to recover anything from it. I wounded him, you know, all the things that go through your head when you make a shot like that. So I appreciate you sharing that. It's definitely something that people can learn from. I'm sure you've learned from it as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've been hunting my entire life, and I learn every season, man. Like that's, you know, there's a couple of things I want to bring up. Is you may look at guys that you think are basically professional hunters, like and they portray themselves as like they never make mistakes and they have a chip on their shoulder. And I've been hunting a long time, and I've guided elk hunting. I've done all of it, but I'm humble enough to say I don't know all of it, and I continue to learn. Every season, I continue to learn. Every time I get into elk, I learn more about elk or deer or whatever species I'm hunting. And I think if you want to be the best that you can be as a hunter, you need to stay humble and continue to learn. And that's my, you know, I'll admit that's part of my problem. I had a little bit of, I don't know, hubris or ego of like, man, I can shoot out to I can kill anything at 100 yards, man. I'm good. Yeah, you can if the animal doesn't move, you know. And the people that are going to talk crap about that situation right now, or anytime people jump online and talk crap, is no one will ever talk crap to you that's doing better than you. I'll never ever hear anybody come down on me or anybody online that's like doing better in life or hunting than what you are. It's always people that are keyboard cowboys that may have never even been on an elk hunt in their life, never even tried, you know, is talking crap, and because it didn't make themselves feel better, you know, make them feel better about who they are as a person, because they don't feel good about. If you feel good about who you are, why would you ever want to tear anybody else down? You know, there's no need to feel that negativity. If anything, you say, hey, man, that sucks. Just like you are, man, that sucks. But you learned a lesson. You don't know what's going to happen when that arrow's in flight. So shorten it up. Right.
Yeah, and it's good to share those things too with people, because, you know, people should learn from that, because again, you know, you don't know what's going to go. Everyone reacts differently. You know, I've shared this quite a few times, but you know, people talk about blacking out, or they don't remember the shot, or they don't remember this or that, and I'm personally the opposite. And it's not, again, it's not a brag or anything like that. It's just when you talk to people about how they react during a shot, you can't really apply that and how you're going to react in certain situations until you've actually been in that situation. You can maybe think about it, contemplate on it, but you know, for me,
yeah,
it's a different reaction to other people. Other people, I'm like, how do you, like, you hear stories about people that black out to the point where they don't even look through their rear sight, their peep sight on their boat. They're just like, there's a pin, boom, you know, and they let it go and it flies right over the back because their peep sight was way low, and they just, you know, whatever happened. Like I don't have that, luckily.
Right.
And so I can't relate to that, but I can definitely say, you know, man, that really sucks. What can I do to help you on the next time that happens, so you don't blow a good shot on an animal? But you know, again, sharing those experiences, I think, is something that people need to get over their ego, and we would be able to learn and grow as a community way more than, you know, when we're not willing to let go of our ego, and people, you know, whether it be in the rifle range where they're like 6'5", need more, you know, whatever, you know, like all of them are picking on the 6'5" guys, or the 270 guys, or the, you know, the classic wood stock that they have to oil, whatever. Like there's so much picking on, and not in good humor. Like, there's good humor, I'm all for that, but when you're genuinely upset because someone didn't use a fixed head versus a mechanical, or they use this brand, or they're diehard Matthews versus Hoyt, or whatever it is, like, it's silly. It's fun when there's actual humor behind it, and you're actually picking on each other more like siblings.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you lift each other up at the end, rather than people going on and be like, oh, well, if I was there, I would have blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, you weren't.
Right.
So shut
Right.
up. Like,
Right. No,
yeah.
100%. And it's fun to have the camaraderie of teasing and joking around. Like, just that camaraderie is a lot of fun. But when you're doing out of like anger or hate or spite, that's one thing. You know, it's interesting that you just talked about like how you're the opposite. And I've heard of people like completely like losing it when they go shot panic. Yeah. And I've seen it once where I don't know what happened to the shot, but it like went, it was an archery shot, the arrow went super slow out of the bow and like missed the animal by like 10 feet at the animal's at like 20 yards. And I'm like, I don't even understand how that happens. Like, how do you even do that? I don't even know how you mechanically make your bow do that. Right. Like, and I don't know. And for me, it's the opposite for me too, where under like super high pressured situations, whether it be a shot or I played a lot of sports, right? Things slow down into like slow motion for me. So I know back when I played sports, let's call it baseball, if I had a shot hit at me, the ball, it just felt like the ball would slow down and everything would be in slow motion when I'm super dialed in. And things felt really easy when things are in slow motion like that. Like you can make plays or do what you need to do. And the same thing is with me and hunting, especially archery, is when I'm about to make that shot, I always remember the shot and things slow down. Like I see the flight of the arrow in slow-mo, everything slows way down for me. And I just super like dialed in and super focused. So, did you play sports when you were younger? Yeah. And maybe that's the variable is practicing and having a lot of reps in high pressure situations like that. Maybe that's what it is.
The other thing too is, I joke about it. Like we talked about how I shot like crap on Sunday at TAC. It also allowed me to realize how I am after 4 days on the mountain. Now I won't be shooting 100 reps before I get my shot on an animal, but still understanding how my body reacts under fatigue, and 24 hours of hiking in the Utah mountains at higher elevation than I'm used to, even though it's, I live at elevation, but not that high of elevation that TAC was at. But the common denominator for me, it's funny, when I shoot worse, it's because I don't have stress. I just kind of get lackadaisical.
Yeah.
And it was, and I was shooting with two guys that like, we're friends, but we haven't really, it's, how to explain this? When you're figuring out your hunting buddies or people that you can talk crap to and what their limits are, you kind of tiptoe sometimes. I personally don't. I like to push it until I can find their limit, and then I'm like, okay, I can back off from here. But the two guys I was shooting with are younger than me, and they know me, but they don't know me in stressful situations. And so after I lost the first arrow, all the crap talking stopped, and I realized it about halfway through. I didn't lose an arrow. On that first shot I missed because we were doing stupid crap like, the cone's here, we're going to step back 20 yards and find a window shot, just like making it more difficult because I like to do that during TAC. And so the very first shot, it was over 100 yards. I don't have a pin for over 100 yards. So I was kind of guessing I missed. It wasn't a big deal, but all the crap talking stopped. And for me, I feel like I get better when I have a camera in my face or you're talking crap just back and forth. Mm-hmm. And I realized that about halfway through after I'd missed a couple other targets, and I was just like, guys, like, talk some crap. And they're like, well, we kind of feel bad because you missed the first. I was like, no, that's not like, I don't get mad unless you're like genuinely attacking people for things that, one, they can't change, or two, like if you were genuinely mad about me being a ginger, like, well, I just suck it and get over it because I don't care. But like things like that, when you pick on people for things that they can't change, that's wrong. That's messed up. But like for me, I've got a very high threshold of frustration, and I don't look at other people and say it's their fault that I missed. I know it's my fault. And so anyway, after that, we were talking crap, and I got better. It was weird. And like, but the other 3 days, like the whole time was just smack talk, and I'm better and I can do this better. And did you know if you shot a Hoyt, maybe you'd shoot better, kind of like all of that, just the whole time we were messing around, and I felt awesome in that last day. it hit me about halfway through the course. I was like, you guys are really quiet. And they're like, well, we don't know how you're going to be after missing that first target. I was like, man, just talk crap. That's what I'm up here for. We're having fun.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Well,
anyway, that's
when you don't know each other, man, you don't know like what's going to piss someone off, right? So like you tease a little bit, but you don't know how far to push it, right? So I'm sure that was just the case. But like mentally sharp, right? Like you're when you're mentally tired and you're just not able to focus as much as where you don't perform as well. But if you have too much anxiety, if you're too like in your head, you're going to shoot like shit too, right? So you have that average, that medium kind of focus / anxiety.
And that's the thing too, is like, I go into it kind of with the low expectation attack. I'm like, I'm going to lose probably a handful of arrows, which I never end up doing. I think I lost more arrows on that last course on Sunday than I have in the last 3 years at TAC. Right. And so I usually shoot at least hitting foam pretty well. And so it was just, I train that way. I train with a camera in my face, whether that's, wanting to share stuff on social media or playing with my friends and putting cameras in their faces. I mean, crap, dude, we do stuff during the off season in February when we go and shoot like this indoor league, where we are the most obnoxious group. Like, everyone else gets quiet, like a golf tournament. They're like, shh, you can tell when someone's about to shoot, right? For us, we're like yelling in each other's ear, tickling our ears. We're like whacking each other on the butt, sticking an arrow between their legs, like just doing everything we can. That's the most obnoxious stuff, trying to make each other laugh, saying the most absurd things. And so I always tell people, like, it may seem awkward the first couple of times you do that, and maybe that's not how you are, but train under that kind of stress, or train with a timer where you set a timer. You're like, I can't shoot my arrow until that 1 minute timer has gone off. And then once that 1 minute timer's gone off, while I've been at full draw that whole time, then I can start my shot process. It's not just a whack right when the timer goes.
Yeah.
And so mixing up training, people don't do that enough. They pick up their bow. They're like, well, it was tuned last year. I'm sure it's going to shoot well this year. I'm going to screw the broadheads on. And they don't think about the whole mental game behind it too. Not just that your equipment is on, but is your mind ready for the stress?
That's right. Yeah, to that point, man, I definitely believe in training in real hunting scenarios, because very rarely have I ever taken a shot, and we're talking more archery shots, and then a lot of rifle shots too. But very, very rarely have I ever taken a shot where I'm perfectly standing on both feet perpendicular and exactly how like you would shoot in the range. Rarely does that happen. Either you're torqued one way or the other, you're on your knees, or you have to hold the draw. Like, I was just in Mexico hunting brocket deer, and I had a few people talk shit about doing some hold training, some full draw hold training. And I was like, yeah, you should probably train a few minutes for sure. Like, oh, that's way too long. You'll never have to hold for 2 minutes. Like, I was hunting brocket deer in Mexico, and I held for 2.5 minutes, a full draw, before I took that shot. And if I didn't train for it, I don't know how that shot would have went,
Yeah.
But I ended up killing a brocket deer, right?
Just like you said with your shot, you can't predict the animal. My very first year shooting archery, and my first year having an elk tag in my pocket, I was at full draw for almost 2 minutes waiting for this cow elk. Not even the bull of a lifetime, just a cow elk to stop in the right spot. She kept stopping when there was a tree in front of her vitals. And so, or she was frontal. And I had told myself, again, setting those boundaries before the hunt, I had said, this year is my first year archery hunting. I don't know enough about the anatomy of elk to do a frontal. I will not shoot a frontal shot. And she presented a frontal shot twice. And 2 other times she stopped with a tree in front of her vitals, broadside. And so, like, I literally, and I could have let down, but if I had let down, she would have bolted. She would have seen the movement. She was within 40 yards. So very obvious that she would have seen it. But I was able to be at full draw and track her for 2 minutes. And I think it was like 1:48. I went back and watched the GoPro because I was like, am I just exaggerating how long that took? And I went back and watched it. I'm like, holy crap, that was a long time. And, but I didn't, again, I had trained that way, just trusting people that had way more archery experience than me. I'm like, there's no way. I said the same thing. There's no way it's going to take that long for an animal to stop where I can shoot it. But of course, the very first elk that I saw, in person with a bow in my hand, it took almost 2 minutes for her to stop before I could get a shot off. And so I definitely recommend people train that, because there's so many things. Yes, you can let down, but if you let down, you're probably ruining that opportunity, because they're going to see that movement. They're going to hear the arrow clinking against your riser. You know, I also recommend people train letting down, because you don't know if you do need to let down. Are you going to be the guy that's like letting down and like, whoa, you know, and your arm goes way forward all of a sudden, and then the arrow's flying off, and then you've got a whole nother mess to deal with. So there's so many different scenarios that you need to train, so that you're comfortable when that animal is there in front of you. So that you're not just like, I wonder if I can do this now. Like, practice pin gapping, practice dialing your shot, practice, maybe you've dialed and the animal takes a few steps, and having to know where to put your pin, you know, so you don't have to let down and dial again. Like, all of those things are things that I've learned in the last couple of years that are true. I mean, they're helpful, and it makes sense.
Yeah. I was with a buddy of mine out elk hunting in Colorado a few years ago, and it was the morning, and we're cutting across. He was with another dude, cutting across like some open area up on top, and all of a sudden this bull came out from the trees and started walking towards them. So they're like, literally was no cover, zero. So they sat down, laid down on their backs, and the bull walked up to 50 yards from them. And my buddy sat up on his butt, drew from his butt, and took a shot and hit the elk, like as that type of shot, sitting down, you know, like legs out on your butt, sitting down. How often do you practice that shot? You know what I mean?
Exactly. And everyone wants to shoot the 80-pound bow, or even, you know, I know there's 3 of them in product that have been made, but the 90-pound Hoyt, you know, that Cam, Joe Rogan, and Bomar have, you know, they're the only 3 that have done it. But everyone wants to shoot that higher poundage because it's cool. But it's like, can you do that while you're sitting? Can you do that when you're cold in a tree stand? Can you do that, you know, your first time drawing a bow back in a week because you've been at elk camp and you didn't bring a target to practice shooting? You know, are you able to do that? If not, lower your poundage and get over your ego, because I'd rather you be able to draw your bow back than freeze up when you've got that chemical dump in your body from the adrenaline and everything else that goes on. You know, same thing with rifles. I'm just getting back into doing stuff with rifles and taking my son on a hunt with rifle. And there's a whole nother, you have to make sure everything's level. You have to make sure there's ammo in the gun. You got to make sure that you racked the slide, that you didn't, you know, keep it on safe, and you're pulling the trigger wondering, why is it not going off? Like, you know, all of those things are just as important. How is it resting in your shoulder? Are you putting a lot of pressure and torque into your grip on? Like, there's so many things that
you're breathing. Like, there's a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Actually, I missed a wolf I just aired an Alberta wolf hunt on YouTube. So if you guys are listening, go take a look. And it was a gun hunt, and I missed a wolf at 175 yards with my gun. And it was because I had where I expected the wolf to come out was 300 yards. And in that dial of the turret, you know, the elevation of the bullet and the drop went right over its back. You know, like, even with a gun, man, like, people think gun hunting is easy. It's not. I mean, it's easier than bow hunting, but there's still a lot of variables that happen, man.
Oh, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more on that. It's something that definitely, you know, you need to know your weapon. You need to know yourself. You need to know there's so many factors and so many things that can go wrong. Make sure that you mitigate them as much as possible in whatever way that you need to, depending on. And, you know, I do personally say, just from my own experience, that unless, like, there's ways to raise the level of difficulty on a rifle hunt, like go for a more mature buck or an elk or whatever, instead of just shooting whatever comes out in front of you. There's definitely ways to do that, to make it more difficult. Just like with archery, any opportunity is a good opportunity, right? Because there's other levels of difficulty there. But, you know, it's like what you said, you expected him to come out in a certain spot, and he didn't come out that far away. He came in closer, and you didn't know where to hold in that moment, because
I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, exactly.
I just didn't even think about it.
It's a
Yeah.
laser beam, right?
Crosshairs triggered dead elk or dead wolf. Like I literally said dead wolf. And I was like, wait, he didn't fall over. Why didn't he fall over? What's going on?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, all of those things, man, they all come into play. So it's definitely super important that people recognize that, for sure.
Yeah.
So that was your most stinging moment.
Yeah.
I guess let's end on a good note here. What was your best experience that you've had hunting so far? I guess the best story or your favorite story that you want to tell.
Oh man, there've been so many good experience hunting. Like there's really not the only time I'm just not enjoying myself as much is when I'm hunting hunters rather than hunting animals. You know what I mean? Like you can get like that with some over the counter units here in Colorado when you're archery elk hunting. But you know, the story, I guess it just comes to mind. I went on, and I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's fresh in my mind. And I'm a physical guy. Fitness is a really big part of my life, man. And I'm tweaked in a way where like, you show me an animal that's like right there, right next to camp, and you show me the same animal 5 miles away over rivers and mountains, I would rather go after the animal 5 miles away because it's just sweeter for me. The victory's sweeter, right? To accomplish that. I'm just kind of tweaked that way. So I went on my first caribou hunt on Adak Island in Alaska. And the island itself is a pretty rugged island. There's no trees on it, but it's very mountainous. It's wet. It rains all the time, super windy all the time. So it's just rough. Right. And I typically bite off more than I can chew on a regular basis. Like that's just, I don't know. I just always do that. So our plan was we got a boat transport. We flew into Adak, got a boat transport, and it's an island. And as the crow flies, I think across this island was like 10 miles across as the crow flies. And we're like, man, 10 miles, that's nothing. We'll just spend a couple days piddling around. We'll just go across the island and see what we find. Pick us up on we start on the north side of the island, pick us up on the south side of the island. No problem. And yeah, way freaking harder than what I thought. And I chose the wrong gear too, man. Like knowing that it was wet all the time. I had some bad experience with boots where like my boots would get sogged out when I'm hunting, when it's been raining for a day or two straight and I'm just soaked feet, and I just didn't want to have soaked feet. So I wore rubber boots, so like your muck boots, and muck boots aren't comfortable, right? So like hiking many miles.
So they're good for a couple of things. They're good for keeping you warm, and they're good for keeping your feet dry. That's about it.
Dry and warm. It's great for whitetail hunting or something you're not hiking a lot. But I'm like, I'll be fine. So I wore some muck boots, and yeah, in the first couple miles, I was like, oh man, terrible idea. This is the worst idea ever, wearing these boots. But we ended up going across the island. We didn't get into caribou until we're about halfway right in the middle of the island. And as the crow flies is definitely way shorter than as you walk across the island. So we're like probably 10 miles in, and we're just right in the middle of the island at that point. And I got a camera guy with me. Yeah. Oh man. And the terrain is like rainy, so it's soft and wet, and I'm slipping and falling every 50 yards. I'm busting my ass all the time and just nasty stuff. And so we're about halfway in the middle of the island, and we finally ran into some caribou. And I actually have 2 caribou tags, and I wasn't even really thinking about this. I had a camera guy with me. He had a caribou tag. And we had another hunter with us, so we saw a cow and a young bull. And my plan was I wanted to shoot a caribou for meat, because I definitely wanted to bring home meat. And he wanted to shoot one too. He didn't care whether or not it would have been a mature bull or not, or if it was a bull at all. So I was like, hey, let's just shoot these 2. That way we're insuring meat. You insure your tag that you're bringing home caribou meat. And then the rest of the time we'll hunt for something more mature. Yeah. Well, not thinking ahead of what that's going to take, we end up killing 2 caribou right away, right in the middle of the island. And now we got to pack these things out in our muck boots. So we had to pack them to the south side of the island, because that's where we're going to get picked up. That was the worst day of my life right there. Worst day of hunting. We started at daybreak after we had quartered him out. I had a whole caribou on my back. He had a whole caribou on his back. And we did not get back to our tents where we had broke it down till midnight that day. So we hiked them out from daybreak, which was like, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, down to the shore and back. And it was, I've never felt, and I'm a physical guy, man. I love backcountry hunting. The harder, the better. That was by far the hardest day I've ever had hunting. Mentally, I was broke, man. I was just done. Yeah.
I don't blame you, dude.
It was rough.
Doing one day.
Yeah. A full caribou, which I don't know what it weighed, maybe, a caribou is not as big as an elk. They're bigger than a deer. So you're probably over 100 pounds on your back, maybe 120-ish. I don't know. But in muck boots and spongy, it's wet, spongy ground. So every step was unbalanced and you're falling through shit and falling down all the time. And we didn't take a break, man. Like the most of a break we took would 5 minutes to get water and then just to go, not really eating, a snack as we're hiking. And I don't know how many hours that is, but it's a long time of hiking. I had that elk hunt the most stinging moment. This was my next hunt. Was this between the elk hunt and this hunt? I lost 30 pounds between those two hunts. That was crazy.
No, that's insane. That's wow. I can't imagine. I've carried out that much weight before, but not in muck boots and not on. And I've never been up to Alaska or that part of the world where on the tundra, people look at it and they're like, "Oh, it's so flat, it's so easy to walk on," right? The way I've had people describe it to me, kind of like you're saying, the spongy ground, but basically partially deflated basketballs is the way that you would be walking, is you're just walking on a bunch of them going through the tundra. And that does not sound fun. I could understand your ankles probably are wrecked at that point, and all of your stabilizing muscles and everything else in your knees and your quads are just trying to
tore up. Tore up, man.
Yeah.
And just to be clear here, I don't want to have any kind of misinformation. So the island wasn't tundra-ish. Okay. That's the mainland, but it was spongy. Because it rains every day on Adak. Every day is rain. Okay. And it was 35 to 40 degrees, raining every day, super high winds all the time. Just nasty shit, man. So, yeah.
Yeah, that definitely doesn't sound fun either. That's your most memorable hunt. That's that's a good memory, I guess. Apparently, it reminds you of how much it sucked.
That's definitely what sticks in my mind a lot. The happiest time is, and I'll just be super brief on this. I took my mom was 62 years old at the time. I took her on her first elk hunt, and we killed a bull, and that was probably my happiest moment in the elk woods.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Well, sweet, man. That's really cool, and thanks for sharing those stories with us. It's always cool to hear other people's experiences, because again, I'd consider myself relatively new, less than 10 years in Western hunting, and about 5 years or less, with a little bit less than that, actually hunting with a bow. And so I'm still green, so I'm still learning, and I love hearing these stories from people that have been able to go out and experience in different states and different animals. And so I guess my last question for you: what is one hunt that you are maybe looking forward to this year, or one that maybe is on a bucket list for you that you really want to get to soon in the next couple of years?
I don't feel like I scratched my itch with caribou on that Adak hunt, because it took all my time was packing out caribou. And the other hunter that we hunted with killed a caribou the next day. So I didn't get a, what's that?
I said, that's a big order in a couple of days. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I would love to go on a real nice Alaska caribou hunt and harvest a mature caribou. That's probably on the top of my bucket list of just what I want to do. And and I'm not putting sheep hunting on this list because, man, that just seems so far out of reach, right? Like, I don't have $50,000 to $70,000 to blow on a sheep hunt. We might not draw that tag, probably not. So I'm not even going to put it on there. I'm put on this list something that's obtainable. So that caribou list was definitely on top of my bucket list. But for this year, 2 hunts that I'm really looking forward to is I have a South Dakota mule deer hunt, archery. I love archery mule deer hunt, man. I love it. Spot and stock mule deer hunting, right up there with archery elk hunting for me. And then I drew an Alaska mountain goat tag on Kodiak Island. So I'm really excited for that one. And that'll be a rifle hunt. So I like hunting with my bow. I enjoy that the most, but I also rifle hunt. I'm just about hunting. I want to go on as many hunting adventures as possible and enjoy the adventure.
Yep. I love it. That's awesome, man. That's exciting. And I definitely understand you there with the caribou. Eventually I'll get up there and do some caribou hunting. We're heading to Alaska here, and I think by the time this podcast comes out, I'll probably already be back. But yeah, we're going up fishing for salmon and halibut,
Nice.
so some silvers. So I'm really excited for that. Get up there with my wife, and even though she's not much of a hunter, or much of a fisherman either. She's like, you know what? We'll put the poles in, and I'll help you get the fish in. I'm like, great. I will do 2 limits a day the entire time we're up there. So,
Heck yeah, man.
No, that's
that'll be a fun trip.
Yeah, no, for sure. I've never been to Alaska, so that'll be another one on the bucket list there. And then, I guess, is there anything else that you want to leave with the audience? And then, of course, let them know where they can find you.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess what I'd like to leave with the audience is just, you never know, man, when it's going to be your last day. So get out and enjoy your life, have adventures, and don't let it take a midlife crisis at 40 like me to go start enjoying and doing what you really want to do. Just make it happen. Doesn't mean you got to take a bunch of money to do it. Just go have adventures, enjoy your life. And I would love it if you give me the opportunity to entertain you, and you checked out my YouTube channel and watched a episode or 2. I'd appreciate that. And that's just Western Obsessions TV. That's YouTube. I have Western Obsessions TV, Instagram. That's where I live mostly, is those 2 platforms.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. Guys, I'm going to leave all the links down below where you can find Kurt and Western Obsessions TV. Definitely go check that out. Go check out the hunts that he's been on and the stories that he's telling, and especially the wolf that he missed. You can go watch that now. So with that being said, again, thanks so much, Kurt. I really appreciate you being on the podcast. And of course, again, thank you for having me on your podcast earlier as well. And look forward to sending people your way and for this episode to come out. So with that being said, guys, everyone out there listening, go check out Kurt's channel. I'm going to leave those links down below. And of course, get out, live your life, and love it. Hope you enjoyed that conversation. Thank you so much for tuning in and staying here to the end. I want to let you know how much I appreciate you guys. There's been so much growth here in the channel, even over this year. I really appreciate you following along, leaving reviews, subscribing to the YouTube channel, wherever it is that you are listening to this or watching this. Thank you so much. We just did a giveaway for the SheepFeet Stealth Bombers that I'm super stoked about. We've got more giveaways coming through the end of the year because, again, I want to say thank you to you for your support here at the channel. My family appreciates it. I appreciate it. And then I can, in turn, provide you with more content and more podcasts and more amazing guests, which we have an extremely awesome lineup going through the end of this year. So with that being said, go check out Kurt and Western Obsessions TV. The links will be down below. Also, guys, if you're in the market for any gear that I use that I've mentioned, check out the links down below. Save some money, support the show, support the partners of the show, but also get the best price possible for the gear, items, or supplementation that you need while you're getting out there and getting after it this fall. I wish you the best of luck. And as my good buddy Dan says, your success will not get in the way of my success. So I hope you are as successful as possible, whatever it is, in the elk woods, whitetail, mule deer, whatever you are getting after. Good luck. I want to hear about your stories. Feel free to email me. My email is redbeardoutdoors1@gmail.com. Send me your stories. Let me know how you've been successful. Send me photos. I want to see it. Tag me on Instagram. Send me a message over there if that's easier for you than email, whatever it may be, guys. I'm super stoked to hear about all the successes this fall. My buddies and I have had some great successes up to this point, and there's many more tags that we've got to fill through the end of the year. So I look forward to sharing those stories with you as well. Thank you again so much. Have a great rest of your day. And of course, get out, live your life, and love it.